What is an executive board or board of directors? The board of directors is an executive committee that jointly supervises the activities of an organization. The board of directors should represent both management and shareholder interests and include internal and external members. A board of directors is an elected group of individuals that represent shareholders. The board is a governing body that typically meets regularly to set corporate management and oversight policies. Every public company must have a board of directors. Some private and non-profit organizations also have a board of directors. The phrase board of directors often is used interchangeably with terms such as board of trustees, board of governors, or simply the board. However, regardless of the terminology, the board of directors is a group of individuals either elected or appointed to provide organizational leadership and oversight. The powers, duties, and responsibilities of a board of directors are determined by government regulations and the organization's own constitution and bylaws. A board of directors has several essential duties. For example, they recruit, supervise, evaluate, and compensate management and executives, provide direction for the business through a mission statement, establish bylaws and a governing the company, act as fiduciaries to protect the business assets and shareholder investments, monitor the business and control business functions. Issues that fall under a board's purview include the hiring and firing senior executives, dividend policies, options policies, and executive compensation. In addition to those duties, a board of directors is responsible for helping a corporation set broad goals, supporting executive responsibilities, and ensuring the company has adequate, well-managed resources at its disposal. The board appoints the corporation's chief executive officer and sets out the overall strategic direction. The legal responsibilities of committees and board members vary with the nature of the organization and between jurisdictions. These responsibilities are typically much more rigorous and complex for companies with publicly trading stock than other types. Many shareholders vote to accept all board recommendations rather than try to get involved in management. A company's board members have a fiduciary responsibility to care for its finances and legal requirements. In addition, they have financial and other obligations to keep the corporation running efficiently, so the shareholders don't lose money. They must act in good faith and with a reasonable degree of care, and they must not have any conflicts of interest. The company's interests must take precedence over the personal interests of individual board members. A successful board director often brings a different perspective to the discussion or approaches the problem from a new angle. An insider director is not typically compensated for board activity as they are often already a C-level executive, major shareholder, or another stakeholder, such as a union representative. An inside director is a member who has the interest employees in mind and whose experience within the company adds value. Independent or outside directors are not involved in the day-to-day inner workings of the company. Outside directors bring new perspectives and experience to the board. A typical example is a director who is also the president of another company in a different industry. Furthermore, individual directors frequently serve on more than one board. The process for running a board, sometimes called the boarding process, includes selecting board members and setting clear board objectives. Unfortunately, the science of this process has been slow to develop due to the secretive nature of the way most companies run their boards. The responsibilities of a board of directors vary depending on the nature and type of business entity. A board-only organization is one whose board is self-appointed, rather than being accountable to a base of members through elections. A committee of directors may be responsible for running the organization in between meetings of the members. The number of powers and authority delegated to the board depends on the bylaws and rules of the particular organization. Theoretically, a company's control is divided between the board of directors and the shareholders in general meetings. Board structures and procedures vary both within and among countries. For example, some countries have two-tier boards that separate the supervisory and management functions into different bodies. The main goal is to prevent a conflict of interest and concentrate too much power on one person. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, Principles are intended to be sufficiently general to apply to whatever board structure is charged with the functions of governing the enterprise and monitoring management. Such systems typically have a supervisory board composed of non-executive board members. Other countries have unitary boards, which bring together executive and non-executive boards. There is also an additional statutory body for audit purposes in some countries. Members of the board could be removed before their term is complete. In most legal systems, the appointments and removal of directors are voted upon by the shareholders in general meetings or through a proxy statement. Removal of a member by resolution in a general meeting can present challenges. Most bylaws allow a director to review a copy of a removal proposal and then respond to it in an open meeting, increasing the possibility of a rancorous split. In addition, many directors' contracts include a disincentive for firing, a golden parachute clause that requires the corporation to pay the director a bonus if they are let go. Managers who are purportedly accountable to the board of directors have historically played a significant role in selecting and nominating the directors for publicly traded companies. In countries with codetermination, a fixed fraction of the board is elected by the corporation's workers. A 2010 study examined how corporate shareholders voted in director elections in the United States. Directors received fewer votes from shareholders when their companies performed poorly, had excess CEO compensation, or had poor shareholder protection. In most common law countries, the board's powers are vested in the board as a whole and not in individual directors. However, an individual director may still bind the company by his acts under his apparent authority. Without the company's consent, directors cannot fetter their discretion concerning the exercise of their powers. This is so even if there is no improper motive or purpose and no personal advantage to the director. The law takes the view that good faith must not only be done but must be manifestly seen to be done. In many jurisdictions, the company members are permitted to ratify transactions that would otherwise fall foul of this principle. There is also a statutory duty to declare interests in any dealings in many countries. Companies require companies' directors to promote the company's success for the benefit of its members as a whole. Board directors increasingly leverage new technologies to communicate and collaborate within a secure environment. The adoption of technology that facilitates directors' meeting preparation and execution continues to grow. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 introduced new accountability standards on boards of U.S. companies or companies listed on U.S. stock exchanges. Under the Act, directors risk significant fines and prison sentences in the case of accounting crimes. Board members often receive remunerations amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year since they often sit on the boards of several companies. Therefore, any company required to establish a director's remuneration policy needs to have it approved by their shareholders at least at 3-year intervals. In addition, any significant changes in a director's remuneration policy from one financial year to another should be highlighted and explained. Directors of Fortune 500 companies received median pay of $234,000 in 2011. A 2011 study by the National Association of Corporate Directors in the United States estimated that directors averaged 4.3 hours a week in board work. In addition, 80% of non-profit organizations require board members to contribute to the organization personally. The number of board members depends on the size and complexity of the organization. For a small organization, 5 to 7 people are plenty. For a larger, more complex business with several committees, you might want 9 to 11 people at the minimum. It's tempting to put friends and relatives on the board of directors, but these may not be the best idea to guide a company. The issue of gender representation on corporate boards of directors has been the subject of much criticism in recent years. For example, an article in the Harvard Business Review described why women continued to be dramatically underrepresented on corporate boards of directors long after entering the workforce. The board must have at least one meeting of the stockholders each year. At this annual meeting, the board announces the yearly dividend, oversees the election of board members, elects or appoints officers and key executives, and amends the bylaws, if necessary.